A computer game called Hawker vs. City Administration became popular all over the internet in the summer of 2010. It is simple but realistic and shows the social contradictions between street hawkers who live at the bottom of society and the administrators at the top. It attracted thousands of netizens. Back in the real world, city administration and law enforcing departments are not as clearly defined. They gradually came into being in different cities and at different times by the end of the 90s. China is modernizing. Planners want to create ordered and respectable communities. It's felt that hawkers selling on street corners do not create a good image. To maintain order, licensing officers are responsible for moving peddlers from the streets, a process that has become an everyday cat-and-mouse game. Hawkers trying to outwit law enforcers are now a common sight, and we recorded some of their lives. The National Economic Census shows that 29 million people are licensed to run a private business in China. But it's thought there is a much bigger group of private businesses that are unlicensed. They work on the city's streets as hawkers and peddlers. It's an unpredictable and unregulated line of work, and the numbers are impossible to calculate. They are an integral part of daily life in China, so it's hard to believe that by simply earning a living, they're breaking the law. Since the opening up reforms of the 80s, there has been a reduction in the number of state-owned businesses and employees. Many people living outside major cities responded to the nation's call to work for themselves. These rural to urban migrants, along with former state company workers, now make up a large group of private business owners. One of them is Hao Ruhui, who left Shanxi 17 years ago and came to Beijing. She now sells clothing such as socks and mittens at the gate of one of the city's universities. Hao Ruhui lives along with her husband and their son in a rented room. It's about 10 square meters and is in a building that doesn't have a bathroom. Hao Ruhui's husband makes a living from repairing bicycles. Together, they make about $660 a month. The high cost of living means that after rent and bills, they have little money left. She's worried that she won't be able to pay for her son's education.
If I look for a job, like as a shopping guide, I'll only get about $160 per month. It's tough selling things on the street, but I can make more money that way.
So how much can you make by selling things on the street?
I make about $320 a month.
11 o'clock, and it's time for Hao Ruhui to start setting out. After 2 hours, Hao Ruhui only manages to sell 2 scarves. She may have made no more than $3. At the same time, other street hawkers also pack up and leave.
Every day I'll go out selling for 2 hours in the afternoon, and then in the evenings between 4 and 7. Then it's back home for something to eat, and I'll go out to sell again until 10 or 11 at night.
Why do you choose these times to sell?
I'm scared that I'll get caught. Those are the times officers from the city administration have their break, so it's less dangerous.
So do you need to watch out for the officers?
Absolutely. You have to look around every second and be alert. If you see them driving towards you, you better run. Sometimes if they're serious about catching you, you don't get the chance to run. If you run, they'll get out of the car and chase you. With 2 bags, how can I run faster than those young guys?
In March 2003, regulations for selling with a license were introduced. It's no longer possible to hawk or peddle goods. To get a license, traders must have a permanent fixed stall or rent a shop. As a result, over the next 10 months, more than 2 million unlicensed private business owners were banned from trading. Now, when licensing officers patrol the streets, all the hawkers can do is run away.
They have caught me more than 20 times.
What happened?
Sometimes they'll take my stuff, and sometimes they'll give me a fine, like $16 to $32. When they take my things to the bureau, I have to pay the fine to get my stuff back. It all depends on them.
Did you ever get your things back?
Most of the time I can. I think they tend to fine people regularly. Selling on the street isn't great, but I don't really have a choice.
The unlicensed hawkers understand that their business is illegal, but they have no other way to make money. 63-year-old hawker Wang Guitian told us his story.
I don't have money to rent a store. I make $5 a day in the winter. That is not even enough for a licensed store.
The house in which he and his wife live is not heated, and it's hard to survive. But Wang Guitian still considers that the appearance of the city is more important than his living conditions.
The country is more important than me. At the very worst, I can only eat cheap food like sweet potatoes. I can survive.
In China, you need to have a stall to get a business license. You can then trade legally after being registered. Certificates are given out by the Administration for Industry and Commerce. However, for the hawkers on the street, it's not always easy to become a legal trader. Zhang Chunlan has been in Beijing for more than 10 years. She told us about her experiences.
Once we saw the officers' vans coming, we packed up and ran. Two guys came and asked if I'm selling socks. I thought they were students, so I said yes. Then they grabbed my stuff, saying, "Follow me to the office." I asked, "Who are you people? Why don't you wear uniforms?" They said, "How can we get you when we wear uniforms?" They wanted me to pay a $16 fine, but I didn't get a ticket. I told them I wasn't happy with that. They said, "If you want a fine ticket, you have to pay $48.
So you paid the fine anyway?
Yes, this is the only way I could get my stuff back. Otherwise, I would have lost half a month's money. Also, there are hawkers everywhere these days. It's difficult to make a good living.
Zhang Chunlan and her husband have been paying her two sons' university fees. She says she's been ill through overwork and as a result is losing her hearing. We have to shout and repeat our questions several times. She needs $5,000 every year to get her children through university. To look after Zhang, her husband helps her with the business during his free time.
When I first came to Beijing, I was selling boxed lunches at a construction site where my husband worked. Then for about 9 years, I worked in various neighborhoods selling toilet paper. I managed to save some money back then. If it was not for that money, we would barely be able to live here anymore. We can't make enough money for our son's education.
Did you go and see a doctor about your ears?
Yes, I did. The doctor said it was because I had been overworking. He said I needed surgery along with 3 months of rest after the operation. I can't do that now. Now both of my sons are in university. I don't have enough time or money.
Most of the hawkers are struggling to live, and they don't have protection in law. It can be argued that this way of running China's cities sets limits on their right to survive and does not consider their financial situation.
It seems that throughout history, there have always been disadvantaged groups in society. The hawkers are just trying to survive. In developed countries, they can obtain a license to sell on the street. Why aren't they allowed to in a developing country like China? As long as we have local laws so that during certain periods hawkers don't obstruct traffic, I don't think there's a problem.
Simplistic and rough rules aren't just harming hawkers. Public administrators have an image that could be severely damaged. In Beijing, the Gao brothers created a series of sensational artworks expressing their opinions about the city's administrators.
We did a series of not only paintings but sculptures as well. They were about city administrators and based on what we've seen and read in the news. I think it's more touching we make sculptures. I think it's a way for people who care about this matter to express their anger. Because constantly we see officers from the city administration breaking the rules despite knowing the law. It's unbearable the way they treat hawkers on the street.
The private business economy has gone through 60 years of ups and downs. It's never been paid enough attention. Even today, in the 21st century, it still doesn't have the status it deserves. This century, China has seen rapid and steady economic growth. In terms of its GDP, it's now the world's second largest economy. But when it comes to how that money is distributed, things are different. The per capita GDP figures are a more accurate measure of individual citizens' wealth. And according to the IMF, China is ranked 93rd in the world. This is a country able to send satellites into space. However, there are still millions of people struggling to survive and fighting for their rights. The future of this country is bound up with millions who haven't been given an equal opportunity to live.